Good morning. Thank you all very much for coming. It's a pleasure to have you here. It's a pleasure to have everybody here, but it's a particular pleasure to welcome a member of the Parliament of Canada. We're not often blessed with the presence of a federal MP, and I'm delighted that Mike Sullivan, who's had an active interest in Metrolinx matters for some years, is here. Mike, I hope you'll stand up and be recognized here in your presence. Thank you very much. Earlier in my career, Mike used to cause me trouble. And when I used to work in the media industry, as did he, but now he represents us in the Parliament of Canada, does a great job. The agenda today is focused on what is our biggest piece of work in front of us, which is Regional Express Rail. We've therefore dedicated a full hour of the agenda to that. We're going to have Greg Percy present. And I'm going to invite members of the board to dig as deep as you wish on this as we bring everybody up to speed through the board meeting on all that's involved in Regional Express Rail, and looking forward to it. But before we go to that, I'm going to turn to our distinguished leader, President and CEO, Bruce McQuaig, for his introductory remarks. Bruce.
Thank you, Chair, and again, welcome to MP Sullivan to today's meeting. I just have a few remarks I'd like to go through before I turn the agenda over to Greg to go through the update on the Regional Express Rail. The first thing I'd like to say is some indications of signs of great progress in terms of the regional transportation system. I joined a few hundred Torontonians on Sunday with the launch of the streetcar service on the Spadina line, and it was a lot of enthusiasm in the people to see what new equipment, new kinds of services, comforts, convenience and reliability will be bringing to the network. More close to Union Station, just in the last few weeks, the second platform at the Union Station subway station has opened up, and that's been a great convenience for a lot of the GO Transit customers who are a significant user of that facility, and is again an indication of a move forward in terms of the implementation of the big move and projects. And the other sign of progress is on August 24th, we also opened the second segment of the York Viva Rapidway in Markham. This is the second section. We opened the first last summer, and we will be opening segments over the next few years. But people, again, can see improvements in the quality of service that are being provided through those kinds of services that are coming online now. I also want to acknowledge some recent awards that staff here at Metrolinx have been recognized for. The American Public Works Association Project of the Year Award for projects with a value of greater than $75 million was granted to York Region and Metrolinx for our partnership on the Viva Rapidways BRT project. Congratulations to our team, of course, here, but also to our partnership with the region of York. GO Transit received the Compass Award of Merit for the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association for the Know Before You Go campaign that's been underway, which really promotes the various communication mechanisms that we have to provide service updates to our customers, whether that's on-the-go alert, the mobile application that's out and available, and GO Tracker. So congratulations to the GO team for this recognition of that work. And then the American Public Transportation Association has recognized Metrolinx at the bronze level for our sustainability commitment, which is our first milestone in a 5-year strategy that we have that sees us moving towards the gold level in 2017. And this has to do with quantifying and highlighting and baselining our work on energy, water, and wastewater use across the system, as well as a variety of sustainability initiatives like moving towards LEED standards in our facilities, solar power projects, and the work of Smart Commute. So again, across the organization, a lot of work has gone into that. We're going to hear from Greg in a few minutes on Regional Express Rail. Today's update to the board is really on the work that's underway to develop the plan that will deliver on the government's commitment for 15-minute electrified service on the GO network over the next 10 years. This commitment is going to lead to faster, more frequent trains. It's going to lead to service that's operating in both directions throughout the day, in the evenings, and on weekends. And it, in the end, means more transit options to people across the region, whether you travel by train, whether you're a customer of GO Transit, whether you're a customer of other transit systems in the region, or whether you're a user of the road network, because we're going to be relieving congestion. A particular benefit of the update you'll be hearing from Greg is really that the kinds of service outcomes that we'll be seeing over the next 10 years don't just happen in year 10. They will be happening in each and every year as we grow service, as different elements of the program comes online. So we're very excited, we're very optimistic about the opportunity to move ahead with this key transformative agenda. Now, the last thing I'd just like to mention before I turn it over to Greg is that I know that we have some people in the audience today who are here with a great interest in Up Express, and specifically the rollout of that service in spring of 2015. We don't have on the agenda today the discussion around the fare pricing model for Up Express. That's something that we're moving towards for the December board meeting, but clearly there's been a significant amount of public input over the past few weeks, and we're taking all of that very, very seriously, and we do appreciate the commentary that's been provided. We are working very hard on the development of the pricing model and the various alternatives that will be built into that, and a recommendation will be coming forward in December to this board, and again, there'll be an opportunity at that time for a full discussion on that. So I just wanted to recognize the people in the room today who are interested in that, and that work is still underway. So with that, Chair, I'd like to turn it over to Greg to go through the material on Regional Express Rail. There is a substantive amount of information contained in the presentation deck, and I know Greg will also be happy to take questions from the board at the end of the presentation.
Thank you. Bruce, why don't we just see if there are any questions to you on anything you mentioned before we do that? Or we don't take questions from the audience. If you want to send me an email, I'm happy to. It's rpritchard@torys.com is the one that comes to my BlackBerry. I'm happy to take it and try and work it into the conversation. And there's no T in Pritchard. I don't see any questions from the members of the board. With that, I turn to you, Greg.
Thanks, Rob. Here we go. The purpose of today's RER presentation is really threefold. We'd like to update the Board of Directors on the work that has been done. There's a lot of intensive work that's been done this summer on planning for the delivery of the RER program. We'd like to give an overview on the implications, narrowed down onto the 7 rail corridors that GO has today and how RER will impact them. And thirdly, we'd like to demonstrate how the program is being supported by the existing investments and projects underway, as well as to develop the course of action that will need to be delivered over the next 10 years. And this is in full partnership with the province, municipalities, stakeholders, and communities. Maybe to establish context behind Regional Express Rail, it's appropriate to start with a quote from Premier Wynne. This was in April at the Toronto Region Board of Trade. And if I may, I'd like to read it through. Our target will be two-way all-day GO Express Rail on all lines. That's what people from across the region have told me that they are looking for. Over 10 years, we aim to phase in electric train service every 15 minutes on all GO lines that we own. Doing that would mean moving the most people for the least cost, and it would help to unclog highways across the GTHA. We just know that that is a reality, and it would do for the region what subways did for Toronto back to the 1950s. And I think that's a very important quote, and that really sets the context for the work that we have done. And through our work on the RER work plan, Metrolinx will deliver on the commitment by the province to invest in this 15-minute electric train service on the GO Transit network. Again, a little bit more context. The recent Ontario budget made a 10-year, $29 billion commitment to transportation infrastructure, including $15 billion dedicated to transit infrastructure in the GTHA. And just to hit on a few of the important bullets within the budget document itself, it builds on the first wave of big move projects such as the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. It continues expansion towards two-way all-day GO Transit rail service, which is identified as a priority. It includes a proposal to electrify the GO rail system to deliver service at intervals as frequent as 15 minutes. It states the province will work with Metrolinx and municipalities on the prioritization of next wave projects through the use of business case analysis. And it sets out the opportunity to work with the federal government to secure federal funding through the Building Canada plan. And we'll detail a bit more on that through. The big move, a visionary document that Metrolinx put out some years back now, really sets the context for RER. The big move's priority action number 1 sets out fast, frequent, all-day, two-way express rail service. Moving ahead with RER builds on the work that has been undertaken since 2008. And I will detail that a little bit here. It's the 30-minute all-day service on the Lakeshore East and West corridors that was put in a year ago, June. Georgetown South infrastructure improvements are nearing completion. New peak service launched to Acton, Guelph, and Kitchener with service levels to double in 2016. Additional peak service on all 7 corridors. Expansion of the Willowbrook Maintenance Facility and building the new East Rail Maintenance Facility. Our fleet size has grown by 163 coaches to 600 coaches, providing an additional 26,000 seats for customers and increasing seat capacity by 96,000 seats. Parking inventory at rail stations has grown by 69,000 spaces, and by adding 19,000 spaces, it's grown too by adding additional 19,000 spaces. And lastly, as a highlight, the new James North Station in Hamilton is under construction as we speak today. The investment has been well received by our customers. Our ridership has grown on the rail side by 17% since 2008, and including 30% growth in our off-peak ridership when we introduced the 30-minute service on the Lakeshore lines last year. The bottom line is faster, more frequent trains operating in both directions through the day, in the evenings and on weekends means more transit options and less congestion for the GTHA, whether you travel by train, other transit systems, or by car. But RER is also connected to other things, other initiatives. RER will be delivered alongside a variety of other planned next wave projects set out in the big move that will collectively transform the region's transportation system. The timing and staging of projects will be based on objective, evidence-based criteria to deliver the most benefits for the region. There are also strong linkages to policy initiatives, such as the work underway on fare and service integration. RER will take a network approach to ensure integrated planning and design. In terms of the vision, RER will transform the regional transportation system by providing significant new travel choices across the GTHA. It will also provide an electric service with 15-minute frequencies in core areas, service in both directions throughout weekdays, in evenings, and on weekends, an all-stop, limited stop service to meet demand and reduce travel times.
Can you just expand on what you mean by all-stop and limited stop service? I think I know what they mean, but
Sure.
I'm not sure everybody here does.
So I'll stop, for example, in our Lakeshore service today, off-peak, we stop every station from A to B. Limited stop means we have a mix of express and all-stop service. So again, using Lakeshore as an example, we would do all-stop from Aldershot to Clarkson, and then we express in from there. So that's the mix of all-stop and express service.
So it's doing what we already do.
It is. But rolling that out to all the lines. All the lines do not have the
Taking the
level
Lakeshore
of service.
experience for my Whitby train, sometimes it's a limited stop and sometimes it's an all-stop, you say time of day. You're
Yes.
saying extending that to the other 5 corridors.
That's correct, with greater frequency than electrified, yeah. This is an iterative process. The vision will be refined based on analysis, municipal, stakeholder, and community input, and discussions with key industry partners like CN and CP. Phasing of delivery will consider this business case analysis, also ridership growth, appropriate sequencing of our infrastructure projects, and other evidence-based factors, which I'll dig into a little bit later. RER will deliver positive outcomes across the GTHA, not just when complete, but also as a stream of deliverables every year so that the public and our customers will see measurable progress and benefits. This is a map of the existing GO Transit rail network. I won't dig into it too deeply. It's a little bit hard to read. But just to top line it, our network covers it's 7 distinct rail corridors using Union Station as the hub. So we are defined in the industry as a hub and spoke system. It covers 8,000 square kilometer service area through 30 different municipalities. We serve today 200,000 daily commuters using more than 60 stations. So this is a significant network today. RER takes it to the next level. The RER work plan. So in conjunction with the province, Metrolinx has been working to prepare this RER work plan. We spent much of the summer, many resources from Metrolinx have been committed to this to get us started. But it really is comprised of 4 key elements. Foundationally, the service concept is what sets the tone. It decides on the mix of service by corridor. We need this. This decides what the level of infrastructure is by corridor. It decides on the type of equipment. It is foundational to everything we do with the RER work plan. The infrastructure needs, as I said, spin off the service concept, and it is what drives the cost for the program. We're still, as I said, this is an iterative process. We're not ready yet, but we've made some great strides since we started this at the beginning of the summer. The phasing plan decides the optimal sequencing of the infrastructure and the service. Considers factors like ridership growth, congestion benefits, and effective infrastructure delivery. And lastly, the 4th piece to this is the engagement plan to identify how we work to engage our stakeholder, the public, the municipalities, elected officials. So there's 4 distinct elements to the RER work plan. We are advancing all of them, but certainly most of them, the thought process and effort has been on defining the service concept and infrastructure so far. The service concept really defines what the end product will look like for each of the 7 rail corridors over the course of the 10-year program. It will apply the vision on each of the corridors and include detailed information on these 6 key areas. Frequency of service on each corridor and part of the corridor, the mix of all-stop and limited stop service, the actual length of trains, expansion of the existing stations and introduction of infill stations, or these would be new stations, the priority areas for electrification, and consideration of the future service extensions. And then how do you really develop the service concept? And the buzzword that we've all been using throughout this early stage is it's iterative. So in developing the service concept, these are some of the considerations we've had: the infrastructure needed to deliver RER service levels, corridor ownership and working with CN, CP, and VIA, environmental assessments and other approvals that we consider key to driving this forward. Union Station capacity, again, we're a hub and spoke system. Union Station is really important to how this all works. And the sequencing of how we do the level of service increases with electrification and other key infrastructure builds. And I repeat, the key word here is iterative. Linkage to other initiatives such as the work on the Young Relief Network study and fare and service integration. And of course, and certainly last but not least, the community impacts along each of the 7 corridors.
Are you going to talk more about environmental assessments?
Yeah. This page is, we've set up to sort of capture the context of the infrastructure planning. Again, keep in mind that we do the service planning, then infrastructure, then it's iterative. We go back and forth until we get it right. And the purpose of this gives you a sense of both scale and complexity of the work that's involved. So there's a number of things, and we'll touch on these. New track and signal enhancements, including positive train control or generation of that called communication-based train control. Grade separation and pedestrian crossings. We envision 6 rail grade separations and up to 40 railroad grade separations. These are level crossings. Bridge expansions. There will be many of those in the order of 130 across the 7 corridors. There's quite a bit of station platform, tunnel, and parking expansion work. We envision up to 60 of our current 63 stations will require some form of expansion, platform lengthening, and so forth. There's certainly underlying this a series of property acquisitions. Certainly utility relocations are built into the construction programming. And electrification infrastructure, including supplying power to the corridors. The electrification is a key part of this, whether it's the distribution, the heavy electrical, pantograph. There's a whole pile of work here that needs to be done that's built into the infrastructure plan itself. Environmental assessments, there are many, and we said, how do we move forward on these as quickly as possible to enable the work to start? So it's a very comprehensive and coordinated approach we've taken on looking at the bundling of the environmental assessments. So there are a number of EAs underway today that can be amended to include RER. The remaining EAs will be bundled by corridor. And lastly, the system-wide EA for electrification will be completed separately, but tied directly in, of course, to the corridor planning itself.
Can you just pause there?
Sure.
We've already done an EA on the Georgetown corridor for Up Express.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I understand it that, well, we did ours. Hydro One hasn't completed its.
That's correct.
Is that? Can you talk a bit about the relationship between what we have to do and what the Hydro One has to do? And is there any opportunity to bring those two questions together as we go forward on all the other corridors?
Sure. So what we received approval on, EA approval on in June, was the core infrastructure for delivery of the service. And what is outstanding...
Up the Georgetown corridor
This is for the Up Express service to Union Station. And it really focuses in on the Western Corridor piece. So that work was approved in June. Hydro One is doing the heavy electrical distribution piece. That is outstanding at this point. At this point, we don't have a clear read on when that closure will happen, but that is moving forward.
And are they the proponents on that? Do they?
On that piece, yes.
They bring the environmental assessment forward?
Yes, on that particular one.
And they do it separately from us?
Yes.
And the pieces, what do they seek? What is it that they're doing in addition to what we're doing that requires an EA?
So the heavy electrical piece is the distribution. It's the positioning of transformers and all that enabling work for heavy electrical. It takes a look at the positioning of catenary, that kind of thing. But it's really focusing on the distribution of the electrical as opposed to the operation of the service. So that's the distinction. And that is their core business, Hydro One's core business.
And why does that take longer than ours?
I think along the way there was a challenge to the process, and the EA is a very comprehensive process that manages through all those challenges. So they are dealing with those challenges, and they have to satisfy those to go to the next step.
Challenges in the sense of stakeholders
Correct.
raising reservations?
Correct. Right. And the EA process is very rigorous, and by the time you've gotten through it, it's you know that you've got a proper approval, and that's what they're going through at this point.
And Chair, you'll see later in this presentation that one of the innovations that we're looking at doing for the remainder of the program is how can we integrate the work, the environmental work on the transit infrastructure in the corridor with the delivery of the hydropower to the corridor. Right now we have the what's called the TPAP process to have a shortened approval process for transit infrastructure, but currently it doesn't include the supply of power. So one of the pieces that we're talking to the province about is how can we better integrate this piece, given that electrification is such a big part of the program over the next few years, and that will streamline the process.
So right now, their Hydro One's EA has to go through a different process than ours because it's not defined as transit.
That's correct.
Even if they joined us as, in effect, a joint proponent under the transit special procedure?
Yeah, so the hydro infrastructure, the delivery of power to the corridor goes through a class environmental assessment that Hydro One has for its kinds of infrastructure. And what we'd like to see and what we'll be proposing as part of this program is how we can integrate and bring those two processes together into one, because we think that's a more efficient, more effective process.
Got it. Howard?
Supplement to that, while understanding the role of Hydro One, what is the role of the local LDCs? Just so many of them in different areas, so how do they play a role in this whole electrification process?
For sure. We haven't started dealing with them yet in detail, but they will intersect with the heavy electrical distribution system. So they become part of the stakeholder group that we would deal with going forward, along with other utilities and so forth.
So you'd be dealing with each one separately, or is your plan, how do you, with so many?
Well, that remains to be seen. We'd like to do it as expeditiously as possible. So if we can bring more together and deal with them as a group, that'd be fine. Whatever it takes, we will do.
There may be an outcome where, because of the specific power requirements of heavy rail, that in some cases there may be a role for the local distribution company. In other cases, we'll continue to work directly with Hydro One because the local distribution may not have the same ability to manage the power loads and the systems that the core Hydro One services have. So that's a work that piece of the work that we're still having conversations about with all the different power suppliers.
So when we go through, like on Lakeshore, am I right that Burlington has a separate electrical company? Yeah. I think that's right. And the trains will be going through there. It's still to be determined whether Burlington Hydro supplies that or whether Hydro One supplies that?
Yeah, we'll need to be sitting down with all the various Hydro One and all the various local providers and determine what's the most efficient way of managing that. In the case of Union Pearson Express, the work has been with Hydro One, but we will be
because there is not a local one on that route.
Because that made the most efficient sense with the kind of power load that we had and the kind of infrastructure that was needed. We'll look to see if that's the same model in the other corridors or if there's a different approach. It's another stakeholder group that we'll need to have a conversation with.
And the decision about bringing these two processes together lies with the Minister of the Environment? Is that where that decision would be?
Yes, that's a provincial decision. Yes.
Okay. Back to you, Greg.
What we'd like to do now is walk you through the 7 corridors, just to top line some of the key decision drivers on how we do the service level and how we do the infrastructure build. So we'll start with the Lakeshore West corridor. This is, Lakeshore West and East are our two busiest corridors as measured by ridership. The Lakeshore West runs between Union Station and Hamilton, downtown Hamilton, the Hunter Street Station. We, Metrolinx, own out just east of Aldershot, and CN owns the Hamilton Junction area, and then Canadian Pacific Railway owns from there into downtown Hamilton. So there's multiple stakeholders, which makes it, there's more dialogue required. They become relevant stakeholders to making RER happen. We will wind up with 2 stations in Hamilton, one in the James North Station, which is under construction today in time for the Pan Am Games, and we have an existing Hamilton GO Center station, and we lay over 4 trains there today. So how we balance that is yet to be decided, but obviously that becomes part of the planning process. We are at this stage anticipating an all-stop service between Hamilton and Oakville, and then an express or non-stop service from there into Union Station. But we're still working the service design to know whether or not we also want to provide a combined express and all-stop service, as we do today, between Oakville and Union Station. But certainly Oakville becomes a significant hub to the RER program. It is today for GO Transit, but even more so under RER. And we're also looking, as we are for some other corridors, future service extensions.
Greg, can you just hold it there? I've got a question from the Vice Chairman.
Certainly.
Just a very simple question. One of the huge advantages of electrification, of course, is the increase in acceleration when a train leaves the station. So could you just give us, on an all-stop service from Oakville to Toronto, the current time, and then what would be the time under electrified service?
Today, an express service from Oakville in...
An
all-stop.
An all-stop.
Oakville to Union.
You're talking about, I would say about 38 minutes, all-stop from Oakville to Union Station.
Right.
What will it be with, if you just kept the all-stop, but put an electric locomotive at the front instead of a
Sure. Typically, you would reduce that time, and we still have to work out the detail to this, but you're talking in the order of probably 4 to 5 minutes in that space.
So 15 per, it's a significant increase.
It's significant increase, yeah, because the electrification offers you faster acceleration and deceleration, which becomes more relevant on an all-stop service. Not as relevant, of course, in express service because you're not stopping as much. But
And if you had an EMU instead of a 10, 12-car train being hauled, does it speed up even more?
well, it depends. You can have if a shorter EMU train, sure. I mean, you're pulling less mass.
An off-peak three vehicle train, something like that, would it be?
Sure.
Is it another minute or two, or is it another?
Yeah, it's an incremental improvement. Yeah. All that stuff will roll in as we detail out the service plan. Those things are all factored into the service design. Staying with the Lakeshore West Corridor under infrastructure, these are major cost drivers. So we're taking a look at the need for a railroad grade separation at Hamilton Junction. Hamilton Junction is where the GO Transit Lakeshore West line intersects with CN's main line coming from Fort Erie up towards Georgetown. So it's a major intersection of tracks today. And to gain speed and frequency of service, you assess the value of separating the rail intersection points. So that piece of work has to be done to ensure we provide the level of service into Hamilton.
What's our rule of thumb for a rail-to-rail separation, just in terms of cost? 100 million, 200 million?
It varies based on the local dynamic, but you can, and whether you go under or over drives the cost. But in this particular case, you're probably, it's a very simple question with a complex answer. So we haven't actually nailed the number yet, but for this particular place, a railroad grade separation could be even in the $500 million range, because there's a lot of water and you have to do it in a very environmentally sensitive way. So, but you can do other grade separations if they're simpler ones for $100 million. So we haven't nailed those yet.
Not a very good. There's not a general answer to.
There is
my
no
question-
general
my
answer to
question.
that.
Got it.
Yeah, because there's no such thing as a grade separation that satisfies all the needs.
Richard, were you?
Yeah.
Richard? Yeah, so help me a little bit on the discussion around Hamilton and the two stations. What kind of process do you see in terms of consulting with the sort of local community about that issue?
Well, very, very heavy engagement with the city of Hamilton to figure out what that balance should be. Also, other stakeholders directly impacting our CNCP. This is CN's main line that runs to James North and CP into downtown. So our vision is we will wind up running to both, but the specific balance will come out as we detail out the actually RER work plan. So we don't have that answer yet, but we do know there's a balance, and certainly the city of Hamilton has to be key to that conversation.
And I presume to be looking at sort of the longer term in terms of the service eventually extending beyond Hamilton
Correct.
and what that looks like. Okay.
Correct. That's all part of the decision. And lastly on there, and this would be common to all the corridors, is the need to move forward on road and rail grade separations. These are level crossings today. And how you move forward on those and the price point of those. There is one of these you can do, Rob, on those, which is about $25 million. But we prioritize that. We have in the order of 100 of those, maybe a little more, on our network today. But we cannot wait till they're all done. So we will do whatever's required on a ranking by criticality, which is a function of traffic and rail traffic and car traffic, to make sure we do those in the proper sequence to enable
Typically a bridge or an underpass.
under or over. Yep, those are your choices. So
And ballpark, wild average.
25
million a throw.
yeah, and if your next question is what's the range, I'm going to
that's
say
more than enough.
it's 15 to 80.
15 to 80.
Yes. So that does give you a sense of scale, complexity,
Right.
and value. Let's move on to
Doug has a
Doug?
question.
I notice on this slide, one new track possibly required, and in your subsequent ones, and in the previous slide, that aggregates to around 340 kilometers of new track.
Correct.
Is there a common answer on Is that on existing right-of-ways? Is it going to require acquisition of lands?
All of the above.
How's that going to work?
Yeah,
Everything?
the detail of which will come out as we finalize the RER work plan, but yes, it'll be in some cases 1 or 2 tracks, in some cases on existing right-of-way, in some cases we would be buying adjacent properties, and the detail of which we don't have. That will all come out as we do the RER work plan.
Okay, thank you.
The Milton Corridor, this is a corridor that is owned by Canadian Pacific Railway today. It is our 3rd most active corridors in terms of ridership, behind Lakeshore East and West. This is CP mainline to Western Canada, so this is commercially key to Canadian Pacific Railway. And as we engage with them on how we move forward, this becomes critical. And this will really move forward, it will define how we move forward on the Milton Corridor in the actual RER work plan as it unfolds. But we have worked closely. We do understand the corridor. We operate over it today in a big way. In terms of infrastructure, we know at Stouffville there is a curvature constraint within the community, so that will be complex. We do know that in conversations with CP that we've had over recent years to add more service, they are looking for a rail grid separation at Humber River. There's a golf course right near there. We are looking at 2 new tracks on the majority of the corridor, and again, rail to road grade separations on the corridor itself in the order of 5 to 6 at least. But this is a key corridor because this is the only corridor where CP owns from basically Union Station out. And so we have to work very closely with them.
Say a bit more about the rail to rail. Where's that and what's that?
It's a more complicated answer than you want, so I'll keep it as simple as possible, which is basically we run today on the Milton Corridor, the CP dispatching intermingles GO trains with freight trains. CP said if you want to take this to the next level, you have to physically separate GO and freight trains. So we would create basically longitudinally a GO corridor on the current Milton Corridor. So think of mixing service today and then separating it tomorrow. And to separate it, you need to go underneath the existing tracks and come up the other side, and that's called a fly under, and that's in the order of $125 million or so to be detailed out in the RER work plan.
And where is that fly under?
At Humber, at the Humber golf course, so it's over water, so it makes it even more complicated. The Kitchener Corridor is our 4th highest ridership corridor. This runs from Kitchener all the way to the Union Station Rail Corridor, which is our hub, of course. CN does own the corridor right in the middle. We own the corridor at this point up to Bramalea. And then the CN main line serving their main yard at what's called their Mac yard in Brampton. They own, and they, of course, are very protective of their commercial interests on that main line. So it makes it complicated. We do have to add track through that corridor. There are certain bridge structures that constrain what we can and cannot do, so we would actually design the service to have a constraint rather than rebuild the bridges through Brampton. So that makes it a little bit complicated. We have to engage CN in a huge way to enable this to happen. What we're anticipating at this stage is an all-stop service between Kitchener and Mount Pleasant, and then a non-stop or express service to Union Station from that point in. We think at this early stage, to be detailed as we refine the RER work plan, that this will optimize the amount of train service we can add in while optimize the investment in infrastructure. We're also looking to see whether Mount Pleasant Union Station could operate as an all-stop service or so these things still have yet to be nailed down, but certainly are all considerations as we refine the service plan. Either way, we still need to integrate with the provincial planning for high-speed rail. So we would make sure that we do not work forward in terms of service design and infrastructure design without some consideration and dialogue, of course, with the province and what the high-speed rail program could look like. From an infrastructure point of view, I spoke already about some of the physical constraints through Brampton. requiring significant community engagement on our part. We're also talking about another rail grade separation in the Georgetown area, again, for us to physically remove ourselves from the mainline corridor for freight. At this point, we think that may require grade separation there. This is a little bit less constrained than some we've done, but it certainly would be a major driver of dollars into the program if we need to do it. Along the corridor, again, consistent across all the corridors, is further road and rail grade separations. The Barrie Corridor, this runs all the way from 2 stations in Barrie, the Allendale and the Barrie South Station, all the way down through the York University area right down and connects into Union Station on the west side. We know absolutely that a rail grade separation is required at Davenport. We will be doing an environmental assessment on that as part of the early enabling work for the program. We do also know that there will be one new track required along pretty much the full length of the corridor, because most of that's single track today. So at least we need to double track that corridor. And it also includes quite a few road grade separations along the way. So that gives you a sense for, we own all the way from Barrie down, but there's still a significant investment in infrastructure required.
And the rail-to-rail at Davenport is separating what from what?
It's
line
separating
from
our
what's going
north-south
underneath?
line from CP's east-west line. Right now, it's an intersection point.
That's the same CP that becomes the Milton
Yeah.
line?
Yes, it does. Yeah, Milton, at that point, the Milton Corridor, instead of going east-west, starts going northwest from there up towards Milton. Richmond Hill Corridor runs today from Richmond Hill all the way down to the Union Station Rail Corridor. We own from what's called the Doncaster Diamond South, which is basically around Highway 7-ish. Down, we own that. It's single track corridor through very environmentally sensitive area and the Don Valley area. That needs a second track, the full length of that corridor. We would more than likely at the same time do flood mitigation in the lower Richmond Hill corridor area. So that's very complex environmental and infrastructure work that we anticipate will be required. Going north, we know that we will need to, it's already double track up to Richmond Hill. CN owns that corridor. It's their main line to Western Canada, and we will need another track along that corridor as well. Railroad grade separations is a constant throughout each of the corridor infrastructure plans, so I won't get into those in detail.
You say the flooding issue needs to be addressed. I thought we were already addressing the flooding issue, because just for our current level of service, that we have to fix that.
Correct. We've done some mitigation today, and what we'd like to do is ultimately raise the track significantly so that instead of mitigating, it eliminates the problem. And that's an investment in we call it flood mitigation. Basically, it's raising the tracks, but it also involves bridges and so forth. So it's a serious piece of work.
Our focus up until now, Chair, has been on how do we strengthen the banks so that we avoid having erosion issues, and how do we channelize a bit, and we're working very closely with the Conservation Authority. Ultimately, we need to find a way to remove the track from being in a place that's susceptible to flooding, because even with the stabilization of the banks, we still have events clearly over the last few years where the Don has escaped its banks and has impact.
And that's that area along Bayview. Is it just the area on Bayview from Pottery Road?
Yes, in that area, the south area, yeah.
So we'd 2 or 3K that we'd have to raise.
What was the estimate you gave us when we talked about this last time?
I'm not sure I did give you one.
I thought someone gave us a big number.
It's a big number, that's it for sure. So, but I don't have a detailed number. We have some studies being done now, and we had them going earlier as enabling work to this. Moving to the Stouffville Corridor, this runs from Lincolnville down to Union Station. We do own the full length of that today, and this This work would be done in conjunction with work we're doing on the Young Relief Network study as well. In terms of infrastructure, we've already done a grade separation, rail grade separation at Hagerman partway down, but we anticipate there may be another one required at Scarborough Junction, which is where the Stouffville Corridor comes down and meets the Lakeshore East. We do envision on the Stouffville Corridor, in most cases, if almost all it's single track today, we do need another track the full length of the corridor, as well as quite a few road and rail grade separations.
Can you explain that rail to rail one? I didn't understand that. That's intersecting with our own track?
Correct. Right now,
Why do you need a rail to rail separation if it's our track to our track?
it's how you merge the two flows of trains. It's to make it faster and more seamless. So this isn't a for sure, but it's part of our analysis as we detail out the RER work plan is, do we need to do that? Early indication is we may. But as to, it's all about how trains flow and how you separate the merging of one to the other. Because keeping in mind RER at 15-minute headways is very different for what we have today. Today on the Stouffville Corridor, it's peak service only. So it's much more easy to merge that train movement with the existing very heavy train movement on the Lakeshore East. When you go to 15-minute headways, the game changes. So you have to merge the trains differently, and you have to build capacity at the point of merging and that from that point into Union Station as well. I don't know if that answers your question, but
I'm not doubting it.
Yep.
I'm just having trouble intuiting the intuition about why you do a separation as opposed to when it merges, why isn't it just an extra line alongside the existing line as opposed to an actual separation? That's why I'm just struggling
sure.
with to get.
So
get
part
a
of it,
picture in
without
my
getting
head.
too complicated from a design point of view, is on the Lakeshore East today you have movement of trains in two directions.
Right.
Stouffville will have movement of trains in two directions. So how those tracks come down becomes very, very important. You don't want to be opposing a train that's on the same track that you want to come in on, it's coming the other way. So you have to physically separate those to streamline the train movement.
I got it. So the train that's going out has to go underneath or over the train that's coming the other way.
Correct.
Got it.
And through all this heavy infrastructure work, I mean, we are interrogating our assumptions, and we're only going to do this if we really, really need to, because it's very serious, time-consuming, expensive work. So that's all part of the development of the RER work plan. We interrogate each of those pieces.
Got it.
This is the last of the 7 quarters we'll dig a little deeper on. Lakeshore East is our single largest active corridor in terms of ridership and train movement. We actually own all the way in from our Go Oshawa station to Union Station. We acquired that from the CN a few years ago. At this point, the very early service thinking is we are looking at all-stop service between Oshawa and Pickering, and then express or nonstop service from there into Union Station. We think this, at this very early stage of concept for service, is going to optimize congestion of train traffic. We, of course, are looking at other options, whether Pickering to Union could also operate, depending on the time of day, as a standalone all-stop service. But inevitably, Pickering becomes a more significant hub. It is important today, but even more so under some early thinking on service concept for RER. At the same time, we are looking at future service extensions from the Lakeshore East. In terms of infrastructure, there is a possible railroad grade separation at Scarborough Junction. We spoke of that in terms of the Scarborough Corridor service.
That's the same
Yeah,
separate
yeah.
rail to rail we just spoke
Yeah,
about.
yeah, it's because the two corridors merge. We do think, and we're actually doing EA today on adding, there's a gap that needs a third track, and we're looking at a fourth track along much of the corridor. And we also have quite a few railroad grade separations that we would rank in terms of priority to advance those as well. So that's the end of the 7 operating corridors. You can get a sense of scale and complexity from those, but it's all very doable. But it's a matter of making sure your service concept plan and your infrastructure planning are in sync. And that's really what the RER work plan is all about. Again, I'd said earlier that Union Station is the hub of the GO Transit system. That's the heart of the system today. And so we have to look at that in terms of what the current, medium, and long-term capacity needs are for Union Station Rail Corridor. It's basically a 4.5-mile corridor that sort of with the Union Station train shed in the middle. So we have to look at not just the actual station, but the approaches to the station. For those of you that have enjoyed a GO Transit trip recently, you'll know that the tracks converge into Union Station, then fan out again. And that makes sense in terms of overall network design, but it is a bit of a challenge in terms of managing capacity. Union Station is Canada's single largest passenger facility, with Pearson coming second on that one. So therefore, it is a really important player in terms of the regional transportation system. We are working in Union Station today, and some of the work that's down there, and our offices are at Union Station, and we're working in a construction site as we speak. But the chain shed roof replacement, refurbishment work is very high profile. This is with the glass atrium, the picture on the upper right that you can't see, and now can, speaks to, that's an artist rendering, but it's a magnificent piece of work, and that glass atrium will be finished in 2014. Much of the train shed rehabilitation work will be finished by 2016. But we're not just doing that. We have a new concourse that will be opening, but our total concourse capacity will triple in size over what we have today. To make that pedestrian flow work, we are adding stairs and elevators to platforms to increase the porosity of the train shed itself. TTC Second Subway is an excellent interface with Union Station and enables the flow of people from GO trains onto the TTC. We're trying to increase the pedestrian access overall to Union Station with increase in the new path entrances and easier access to the path system. And last but certainly not least is the signal system replacement program. We have a very well-designed signal replacement system, but it needs to be replaced. It's old, and we want to protect the reliability of our service, so we need to replace the signal system for Union Station.
Great. Who's got a question?
Sure.
A quick question. Canada's largest passenger facility. Can you give some context? What do you mean by that?
It's just the flow through. We have 91% of GO's passengers each weekday go through Union Station. And so an order of magnitude number is 200,000 people per day go through Union Station.
Compared to?
I don't have Pearson's numbers, but I know they're not 200,000 per day. And Pearson would be the largest airport in Canada. So that would rate Union Station as, in terms of passenger throughput, number one in Canada.
Greg, on the passenger side of Union, I know you're going to come to the tracks and what we have to do and the platforms. Is it fair to say that with RER, with some version of your service concept, plus Up Express, that what you're doing has got sufficient capacity to accommodate that? Once the work that's already underway with the new concourses, the new platform, that will give you, if you can solve the train issue, you've got enough passenger capacity now in Union to accommodate that you will have enough passenger capacity to accommodate the level of demand you're anticipating with RER fully in place, plus Up Express already in place?
The RER work plan will detail that out. At this point, we have enough capacity. We've invested in incremental improvements in capacity by buying former CN tracks, and speeding up trains. The signal system will increase the throughput of trains, therefore people through Union Station. A number of things I've said will increase the capacity, but it's only incrementally. So we have some other ideas that we think will stretch out that capacity longer. I can't say at this point that we have enough capacity to have a fully engaged RER program throughput. I don't think that's a definitive yet.
That's on the train side.
Correct.
But on the passenger side, like right now in the mornings, walking through the concourse, it's very crowded. And this anticipates more trains and more people.
Correct.
but we also have the new concourse. I'm just trying to get a flavor for whether what you've designed already in our building at present has sufficient additional capacity for people that it can accommodate what you're imagining here.
All the investment and work is helping, but although we don't have a for sure answer until we nail down the RER work plan, but one of the analysis that needs to be done still is whether or not we can answer that question, say we have enough today. Longer term, we may look at other options to supplement Union Station, be they digging deeper, be they creating a second Union Station. We don't have those answers. That's work yet to be completed. And that will be an adjunct to the RER work plan.
Greg, would it be fair to say that in the short and medium term, these moves that are underway now, we're confident that they take us through our needs over the short and medium term horizon? We still need to determine the longer term horizon, but we believe we've got, with the, say, the tripling of the capacity of the concourses, we can manage the passenger flows in the to the short and medium term.
Correct. It'll take us out to
If you take 10-year horizon.
yeah, it'll handle up to 10 years. And RER ramps up through that 10-year period. So yes.
Good.
But we need to do the work now as to what happens the next day.
Yeah, I'm just worried about 10 years at
Yeah.
present, okay? So we got a lot of work to do on the tracks, but I'm
Yeah.
taking comfort. You've already anticipated what we need in the station in terms of passenger flow.
Correct.
Richard?
Mr. Chair, I think we'll see a bit of a dynamic change in terms of the traffic because while you're going more frequency, because you're adding more frequency, you might actually be flattening out that peak a little bit. And so it comes down to really what's the peak passenger load look like as opposed to the volume, right? So I think we're going to get better utilization of the asset, which is great, and better frequency in terms of getting the trains in and out. So it's not just a straight linear.
That's a very good point.
So I think it's a matter of, I'm sure Greg's going to be working through that detail, and it'll give us a better sense of it. But I think there's more capacity there than what we think. It's based on how we change.
I got Rahul and then Howard. And then I want to say, Greg, just as a time check, we're at the hour.
Mm-hmm.
We still got half a dozen slides to go. I'll stop asking as many questions. My colleagues will continue to ask them, and you need to increase the pace.
Pick it up? Sure.
Just increase it a bit.
Okay.
It's very important. It's the most important thing on the agenda, so I want to do it thoroughly, but I'm just saying I slowed you down enough that we've run, the clock's becoming an issue for us. Rahul, then
It
Howard.
may have been in your earlier answer, but I'm going to go back to the people flow. So I get the train flow at Union Station, Union Station. Is TTC at the table when we're talking about the people flow that's going to be enhanced to actually get into the subways? Because obviously there's been a lot of work, and our chair alluded to the congestion that's down there already. But it seems just intuitively that they've done their fix already. And is that a sufficient enough fix to make sure that we've got the increased capacity of people coming through Union Station by train, and they can actually get into the subway?
Correct. Yes, the short answer is yes. We work with TTC because the feeding of the GO system comes off both the PATH system and TTC, both of which are being expanded. So yes, we're talking to TCC, and we think second platform is a step change, of course, to enable that to happen. Looking beyond 10 years, we'll revisit with TTC whether that's sufficient. But certainly right now, the investment made is going to get us a long way. And to Richard's point, there's some of this we don't have the answers to yet. We're talking about a 1930 built building, and we're transforming it into something that is 22nd century. So some of the answers we don't have yet, but certainly the collaboration is there with TTC.
Howard?
Just in terms of the supplemental to people flow, the idea of escalators. So you've stated stairs and elevators, but no mention of escalators. My experience in traveling is that escalators play an important role in moving volume.
So your question is, why aren't we building escalators? So
Is it space related or?
that's tied into the narrowness of the platforms at Union Station within the train shed. We did actually remove escalators and replace them with stairs because escalators present a safety risk with people going to the top of the escalator onto platform and standing there. And then then people coming up have no place to go. So to eliminate a safety risk, we eliminated escalators at Union Station. So that's where, so we've demonstrated and satisfied ourselves that escalators are not successful in moving the flow of people we have in our rush hours safely onto the platforms. That's our conclusion. That's how we've acted today.
Janet, have you enjoyed our elimination of?
Well, I was just going to suggest the compensating thing we need to do, yes, we lost our escalator at Ajax, is those elevators, particularly the one in Union Station, but the elevators for folks with challenges need to be much faster and much more efficient, because they're terribly slow and frustrating for people trying to catch the trains if they have any kind of disability. And they're very small, for one thing. And the one at Union Station, I think it's like 3 minutes or something, to get up and down, because I've timed it. So if we're taking out escalators for safety reasons, and I understand that, we need to do something about those elevators for people.
Okay, thank you.
Can you fix that for us?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, yeah. Just to follow through on other work we're doing on the USRC, I won't dwell on any of these for too long, but there is a lot of infrastructure work being done today. We're extending track 1 so that, which those of you familiar, has a curve on the east side, so that's going to be straightened out to accommodate 12 coach trains. We have engaged VIA in some very collaborative discussion in terms of how do we optimize their footprint within Union Station. We're looking at other storage track options on the various approaches, primarily east side, because that enables how we balance peak and off-peak service. We're looking at other ways, as we had spoken of, how do we accommodate increased volumes of trains, basically 24/7. How do we accommodate electrification is a separate chunk of work that is critical and needs to be done very quickly. And how do we look at longer term capacity? The last bullet refers to what's happening beyond 10 years. We'll move forward. Let's go to electrification. We think the benefits of electrification are significant, particularly with the level of service that we can build into a higher, more frequent service. And that's primarily because of the faster acceleration, deceleration of electric equipment. The operating costs, some reports say lower, some higher. That's part of the RER piece of work that we will define what that is. In terms of the electrification study that was done in 2010, we took a look at design of electrification of the entire network, also including the heavy distribution network required, which is the traction power facilities. So that piece of work has been done. EA for Up Express electrification was completed, as we said earlier, on June, and the power supply has yet to be received, so we've spoken of that already. The performance specs for Up Express, we've developed those already. There's some very good work that's been done that led up to the EA approval. All of that good work is banked and will become useful as we move forward. The Georgetown South work that's winding down as we speak, all of that has been built to accommodate electrification. So we had the foresight at that point to say, where will the catenary be? What do we need to accommodate electrification? And all the environmental approvals, we've got a strategy for how we can move those forward as quickly as possible, including electrification. I won't spend too much time on that. That's just a snapshot of some of the infrastructure that will underpin electrification, and cite some examples. The only commuter line today in Canada that's electrified is the Dumontin line in Montreal, the Agence Métropolitaine de Transport, and it's worked. CN has run that for some time and works fine, so we will learn from there. In fact, the CN engineer that did that recent refurbishment work is a GO Transit employee, so we bought in some skill set there, but we need to import more to enable us to do this work. In terms of fleet implications, they are significant. We have much more to do on that, but we've done some early work in terms of what is available. The current GO Transit fleet is large, and we need to merge what we have with what we need to have to enable electrification. Much more analysis to be done on that. But our options are fairly straightforward. We can look at electric locomotives. An option that Montreal and New Jersey have done is looking at dual mode locomotives. And the one that has great promise is EMU technology, self-propelled technology, be they single or bi-level types of equipment. And safe bet that we will go through a period of 10 years of having a mixed fleet as we transition RER. So we will go through this period of managing multiple fleets, and that's an inevitability for us. One of the fundamentals to how we move forward on RER is to make sure that we take a evidence-based business case approach. Because of the significant public investment involved, this is the only appropriate way to move forward to make sure that there's good value for money. So we will apply an objective evidence-based criteria to determine the prioritization of the Next Wave program and the prioritization of how we roll out RER by corridor, by parts of corridors over the next 10-year period. We will work closely with the province and the municipalities on building into the business case the right logic and right benefits to the program. So what the business case approach does include is a close interrelationship between the business case analysis, planning, and the operational design. It optimizes, it looks at options, optimizes those outcomes. It's a very transparent methodology. It's a recognized and way of making sure that significant public investment is well done. It takes in the life cycle of the assets, be they rolling or fixed assets. We have some expertise in-house that will make sure that we bring in international best practice into the business case methodology. And I won't cover off the rest just for time, but basically we think this is a very solid methodology to take the scale of money that's involved with RER and make sure that it's good value for money for the tax dollar.
And your report suggested we should update our methodology. Are you comfortable with this?
I'm comfortable that, and when I wrote that report, I was in consultation with Metrolinx staff, which were already aware of the need. I won't know for sure. Like, I know that there's existing methodology that they use, for instance, that they use in England or internationally, standards that are very high. I am aware that Metrolinx staff is aware of this and that you're utilizing that. What I don't know is whether you're making changes to that. But I will know that when you present the first business case analysis, and I can see what it is. But I am comfortable that Metrolinx staff is on this.
Thank you. Okay, Greg, sprint to the end, please.
Sprinting. Under costing and funding, we've touched on this throughout, that it's an iterative process. That's really important to understand. We are doing due diligence on costing. We're going to use the business case to drive the logic to the costing model. The costing models are based on having a strong foundation on the service concept, infrastructure plan, and phasing. There is an opportunity for the federal government to step in to be a partner, full partner in some cases, on the expansion of the regional transportation system. There are other partners. There are many other stakeholders, including municipalities. And there has to be a very close alignment between local service interface between municipalities and GO Transit as it expands on the RER program. There are different program delivery models out there. We will be working with Infrastructure Ontario to see what pieces of work make sense to use by what model. Those discussions will happen. I won't get into the various options out there, but suffice to say that we will work closely with them to take the right and most agile procurement process we can. Briefly, this is where it's near the end of the presentation. It's certainly a very, very critical part of how we move forward on the RER work plan and the construction. So there's a lot of engagement that's required moving forward. Municipalities, stakeholders, communities, public. There's a lot of construction that's going to go on. As we have seen in the Georgetown South program, it becomes intimate with the communities through which we have to do this piece of work. Local transit needs to be cut in terms of how they plug into the GO service as it unfolds. And we have to closely work with the major railways, CNCP and VIA, to make sure that what we build dovetails to what they want to do, and also to look at any service expansion. And electrification is not something, we have to do a lot of work with them on how we unfold that. There's a lot of detail in how they design their rail works under an electrification scenario. So going forward, we will be having a significant engagement with communities and the whole stakeholder group, as broad as it is, to make sure what we do makes sense to the communities. That's hugely critical to this.
Greg, just on the freight business, can you run a freight train under a catenary? Or do you have to have the catenary over one track and the other track not have a catenary? What's the...
You can run diesel on an electrified corridor. You can't do the reverse. So yes, you can. And can you run both in a corridor? Do you have to electrify a full corridor? Depends on the corridor. Union Station is a business decision. Do we electrify the whole thing or parts thereof?
Just on a simple idea, if you've got a catenary over a track,
Yep.
is there any inconsistency with running a diesel freight train underneath that catenary?
You can do that. You can run a diesel.
There's no height, you just build a catenary high enough to take a double, triple decker?
That's correct. If it's a double stack container intermodal train, freight train, then you have to make sure that your clearances can accommodate it.
But the pantograph can go high enough?
There is a technical, pantographs do have a performance length that you have to factor in for sure. So you can't have an infinitely long pantograph. It has to, there's a specific design criteria for that. So that all has to be optimized. But we've done some early works on how that could work in a mixed corridor. And it's not simple, but it's doable.
Thank you. Next steps. Oh, sorry, Joseph.
I thought you were finished.
Oh, he's got one slide
One more to
left.
go. So where do we go from here? Our work continues to deliver on the projects that will build the foundational work. So we're doing this work now. So we will deliver an ongoing series of completed works through the whole 10-year period. I think that's an important takeaway, that this is not, everything does not land in year 10 on a Tuesday, that it actually works. We will be delivering finished projects throughout. We will be working in close partnership with the province to refine the service concept, and from that, the infrastructure needs, costing, environmental, and other approvals as required. The phasing strategies will be a big part of the engagement strategy that we will move forward on. Ridership forecast, benefit cost. There's a lot of key drivers into the phasing strategy. Union Station is a big piece of that. How we engage with the federal government, we will have a strategy for that and move forward when we have done our homework. And we have to work closely with, as I said earlier, with CNCP on what that means with them. We have to be hosted by them on their corridors for some of our lines. So they are key players, and we have to work collaboratively with them. We will be coming back to the Board of Directors on December 11th with another update and give you some sense for the further work we've done between now and then. That's it. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, excellent presentation, Greg. Your best yet. Well done.
Exactly, and I was about to say that very detailed and meticulous work. In the December report, will you be able to tell us whether or not we will be, all this work, all this analysis will fit into the budget framework that you have?
Yeah, we'll be way further down. And I think we'll give you some better sense on that. There's a large piece of work to be done between now and then, so I'm not going to give you a strong yes or no, but certainly we'll get as close as we can. We'll be transparent and tell you what we've achieved up to that point.
Yeah. But again, congratulations. Well done.
Thank you.
Doug?
Thank you, Rob. I just want to make a quick comment and then a recommendation. I understand how complicated good public policy is, and I know that it's easy for political leaders to make important aspirational statements and set out public policy objectives with respect to transit in this region and make it sound simple. What Greg has walked us through today is a sobering and powerful reminder of the complexity of delivering on those statements and transit objectives. The implementation, whether it's engineering or procurement or processes that ensure it's done properly, or construction, both the physical construction of it and the capacity of the industry to deliver, the environmental and regulatory issues, community and stakeholder considerations, complicated negotiations of competing commercial interests, CNCP, VIA, and others, not least of which financing in both capital and operating. Rob, you've used the analogy that what the GO system is doing is building an airplane while it's in flight, and I think that's a very apt analogy. I just strongly recommend that we develop an effective plan to inform residents and taxpayers of the complexity of this. It's going to be a 10-year process. The Weston residents sure didn't like Georgetown South, and that was relatively short. I'm sure it wasn't if you live there. But we got a real important job to properly manage expectations as we go through this, if we're going to maintain support through this big, long stretch. So I think it's vitally important work, and I'm 100% behind it, but we got a big job ahead of us, apart from all the important engineering work that you're going to be doing.
I'll take that as a comment. Thank you, Doug, for that. Rahul?
I have a question that builds a little bit on Doug's point. This is a really big job. I'm confident that Metrolinx will enhance its capacity to deliver. I want you to comment a little bit about industry's capacity to deliver as well. We don't build the fleets, we don't do the construction. There's a big, tall order out there. Do you see any gaps, and what are your thoughts about that?
I think that's an excellent question. Yes, there is a concern that the industry's capacity, consulting, construction industry capacity, will need to adjust. And as we get a better handle on the scope of the work, and they will have to adjust accordingly. And you can be sure there will be greater interest from non-traditional delivery agents, other consultants globally. And increasingly, and we've learned this through current work of the last 5 years, that there is huge global interest in what we're doing. We are one of the few places doing this scale of work. And they will send people to tap into that as best they can. So what we need to adjust to is how do we filter out the strong players? We want them to be part of this. And there's no question the local industry consultants and construction players will ramp up to do this. But certainly that's top of mind as a concern for us. But we think because this is unique and significant that the industry will adjust to us.
So both a risk and an opportunity.
Correct.
Bruce wanted to add something on this?
And I think one of the strengths of the program is that it actually gives insight to industry of a 10-year program. So they can actually start to plan ahead, even right now, about how they build capacity to be able to deliver this, to mobilize themselves. And particularly in areas that are not traditional areas for GO Transit service delivery and electrification, for example. So this is an opportunity for industry to get ready to deliver a significant program over a 10-year period and be there to be a partner with us to do that.
Janet?
Somewhere in here, you talked about the potential of the Building Canada plan, a federal assistance. What's the potential for that? I mean, if we were, we would, I guess, make application and whatever. What's the potential? I'm not asking you to say whether we'd get it or not. I know that's a bit of that would be a challenging question.
Certainly we're hopeful. But certainly we have briefed Transport Canada on the rail road grade separation program and parking structure program. We've worked closely with the province. The province and the federal government have to make that call as to priority of projects that are candidates for this particular fund. We are very hopeful that we will stay to the top of that heap, and we will wait until they've made that decision. But certainly the communication has happened already as to the importance of the work and how it hits on community and safety by doing this type of work that we're doing.
Bonnie?
My question kind of relates to Janet's, in that the Canada Builds program, as I understand it, I might be wrong, so please correct me, could, if you are successful with a project, support a third of the funding. And then the province must agree to whatever gets submitted, so we're fully aligned there. But then there's the municipal engagement to be able to bring the full piece together. Not required, but in an ideal world, it would work together. And so when you think about the changed pace that we have in front of us in this next 5 years, is there anything in our past partnership, for example, with CNCP that has been a good partner and is a critical partner that would suggest they're starting to ramp up their capacity to be able to engage in an expedient and responsive way with us? Are you aware of stuff going on the other side of the ledger to will help us get there?
We work very closely with CNCP every day on service delivery. We engage also on the engineering side with them and on their network strategy team as well. Have they ramped up? No. I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure we have our ducks in a row and detail out our work plan before we walk it into them. Otherwise, we're going to sort of nickel and dime them. But clearly the message is we need to work closely with them. And so there's some pretty big scale stuff too that we need to discuss with them. And also some microengineering stuff. So it's quite a bunch of work we need to do with them. So that has not started yet. We want to make sure we know our ask properly before we engage.
Any other questions? Wouldn't be a bad thing for us to move along on the agenda. Mr. Mutton's getting increasingly anxious about his report. Greg, that was really good, and I know it wasn't just your work, it was a whole
Absolutely it was.
great big team of excellent people working with you on this and external help as well, so
Yeah.
nice progress.
And then you're right. If I may put a little
Keep us brief.
promo in for the team, yeah, there's a lot of work being done over the summer, and in fact, some people missing their vacations. But we need to get to this point, so hats off to the team. Thank you.
Excellent work. Thank you very much. That brings us to the Customer Service Committee Chair's report. Mr. Mutton, please.
Thank you, Chair. The committee met yesterday for 2 hours, and we had our usual lively discussions. Thank you for committee input. The first item I would mention is the update from GO's Customer Service Advisory Committee, which is ably chaired by Richard Corridor. There was a meeting on the 28th of July. They discussed a number of things, including enabling real-time bus information, which was a very popular topic, improving regional transit traveller information, and also discussed Presto's self-serve initiatives, which are under consideration. Which brings us to Presto. So Presto was discussed, the communications to promote and support the rollout on TTC's new streetcars in the fall of 2014 will include transit and media advertising across the TTC and printed brochures on streetcars and stations in the fall of 2014, including also Presto ambassadors to assist customers on site in select locations and at the onboard streetcars, the call center at the TTC, and existing social media, Twitter and Facebook in particular. We discussed also Up Express. Up Express continues to progress, leading towards a spring 2015 launch. Station construction completed as of September 1 is Pearson at 99%, Union at 75%, Bloor at 75%, and Weston at 75%. 2 pilot vehicles have arrived in Toronto, currently in the early stages of testing. Teams are preparing the corridor testing for the fall, including acceleration, deceleration, and route speed. Remaining vehicles are at various stages of build on a production line in Rochelle, Illinois. And Regional Transit Traveller Information System update was received. Metrolinx is leading the development of the Regional Transit Traveller Information System in collaboration with 11 transit agencies in the GTHA, focused on developing a one-stop transit information hub for all agencies. Phase 1 to be in place for next July, Parapan Am Games will provide transit travellers with multiple trip itineraries door-to-door, direct links to more detailed information on scheduled stop stations and fares, and it will be available on the website and mobile apps. And we had another lively discussion about design excellence. The Metrolinx Design Excellence team is focused on architecture, landscape architecture, and urban design, known as DX. They're presenting advancing the following major initiatives: Eglinton Crosstown LRT proponent team compliance with design excellence requirements and related integrated development guidelines. Also, design excellent requirements for Shepherd Finch LRT, and GO urban architectural and landscape design guidelines, as well as harmonization of the GTHA transit wayfinding. And that's our brief report in less than 10 minutes for our September meeting. Thank you.
Any questions to Mr. Mutton? Thank you. It was a very good session yesterday. And thank you, Richard, for what you do as well on that. Leslie, where's Leslie? 5-year strategic plan, 2013, 2018. We do this every year. It's a roll forward of the previous year. Why don't you give us the highlights, Leslie?
Thank you very much. As you mentioned, this is our 4th year into completing our 5-year strategy. Just to explain how the strategy is being used, it's a fundamental foundational piece for informing and guiding all our budgeting, our business planning. It is the foundation upon which we work with the province in submitting relative to the provincial, to integrate with the provincial budgeting process. And then as a result of that, it informs our operating budgets and we use it as a benchmark for audit and annual reporting. Over the 4 years since we've begun this, we have increasingly created, I would call, a more robust system of integration amongst all the strategic documents within the organization. They sort of cascade into each other and out from each other in various timescales. So, for example, the big move is a 25-year span, but we embed within that and we link and align all the subsequent documents, whether it's our 10-year capital, the 5-year strategy, our annual business planning, and to ensure that we are doing what we're saying we intend to do. So the objectives and outcomes are really being met by the tactical moves of the organization. Just a bit around where we are now. This update I'm bringing to the board has included consultation not only internally but also with some of our external partners, including the municipal planners and transit operators, and we did post a draft on our public website for input as well. What's new this year? Obviously, we roll it forward. The timeline is slightly different in that the timeline is now going from out to 2020. We are more closely reflecting the commitments around the regional express rail in that we have much more specific idea about the time span within which the delivery of that is the government has committed to. And we added a new section that wasn't there before, which is called the funding outlook, just speaking to the extent of existing commitments, which are significant, and looking beyond that. The other things that are new, some sort of what I call fine-tuning of language, which I won't go into. It's a bit more of a wordsmithing, but it's sort of refining the tone of our mandate, and also the format. We've tried to put it in a more visually compelling and accessible format, not just for our employees, but for the public in general. I'm going to sort of quickly go over this because really it's a kind of word-to-word demonstrating how the 5 priorities, how we've refined the language, and it is really refinements. The fundamentals of the 5 key priorities that we set about in our last 5-year strategy are essentially there. We just continue to always evolve and refine. The document, as you know, sets up the 5 priorities. It lists within those 5 priorities a series of objectives, and embedded with the objectives, there are very specific deliverables identified, some of which have specific time lines within the 5-year period, and some, because they're broader objectives, more longer term, extend beyond the 2020 period. So, for example, in this chart, we've sort of identified what explicitly we've changed relative to the objectives that were set out in last year's version. And there's been some moving around. So this is more of a way of, these tables really help you in a kind of track change way, understand the order of magnitude of changes. And many of it is really language clarification, where when we put it out last year, it was a little ambiguous or confusing, so we helped try to tune those out. I'm going to actually move, if it's okay with you, move past these, because they are quite detailed. What I would like to note is what I'm asking for today to the board. One that, subject to some minor editing and final formatting, that the board approve the 5-year strategy for 2015 to 2020, that the ongoing work in aligning our corporate budgeting priorities and performance planning be in line with this 5-year strategy, and that we be authorized to post this publicly in its final version for public information. That's my presentation.
Damn, that was good.
Well,
Right to the point. Thank you very much. I don't think there's anything in here that'll be a surprise to anybody. I know you've had it and reviewed it, so I'm not trying to discourage comments at all. I don't want to take an absence of comments, Leslie, as other than full support for you and this work, but I'm going to turn to Richard first.
Appreciate it, Chair. Thanks very much and good work, Leslie. The piece that I guess I was disappointed with this is the whole concept around goods movement. There's very little mention. I think there's one bullet in 4B. It's not even in the slides. It's actually in the detailed document. And yet that's supposed to be one of our priorities in terms of driving efficiencies and improvements in the goods movement sector. And I think certainly the Premier's kind of reaffirmed that in terms of that's part of our mandate and that's part of our responsibility. So I would hope that we, if we're going to have an opportunity to edit or change this a little bit, that we could actually provide a little bit more profile in terms of A, that's an important piece that we're doing, and B, what are the tasks we're going to undertake in the 5-year period. And I know Leslie's done some good work with the Freight Forum group in terms of identifying some things that they would like to have seen done. Some of it's underway, some of it's still out there, and we can incorporate some of that into this.
Do you want to comment on that, Leslie?
What I would say, yeah, happy to do that. I think the statement, the one, even though it is one bullet, it is quite broadly defined, and we're building from the urban freight strategy that we established a year ago. So I'm happy to put a bit more detail in the deliverables under that heading, because there are some that they just don't have an immediate, we have not set specific deadlines, so we'll try and put some language in there that could support that, and happy to consult with you on the specifics.
Just help me square Greg's presentation with yours. If you were looking forward a year from now,
yes,
would you expect there to be more changes than usual in our 5-year outlook once we've locked down the matters that are all under review now as part of the RER? It feels like RER is a big piece coming through. It's too early to reflect it much here in any detail because, as Greg said, we're still trying to figure out the detail. But a year from now, would you expect your report to look a fair bit different as it takes on board the outcomes?
So what I would say is that as RER becomes more into focus, there may be particular details that we can embed in this document. The foundational piece of RER is established in here. As I was pointing out, this is one of several documents. There is a GO 5-year strategy that carries to a higher level of detail the particulars about GO, and that's probably one of the better places to put in a more fulsome detail about RER. But I would say that in the 5-year corporate document, we will maybe perhaps piece out some more specifics on RER as they emerge. But if you notice in some of the priorities, even within this version, we have adjusted the language more around the specifics of RER already. So yes, there will be changes, but there's also the opportunity to put even more in the adjustment of the GO Transit 5-year strategy. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. But Anne?
Just a question on one of the deliverables will be the review of the big move.
Yes.
And one of the recommendations I had made in the report I did was that we try to do this in conjunction with the review of the provincial growth plan. I didn't, unless I missed it, but I didn't see that. Has there been any discussion, or are you going to attempt to do that?
So there is a specific, it's actually 1A is the deliverable, complete the legislative review. It doesn't have the details around the collaboration with the Growth Secretariat, but that actually we've already begun having coordination meetings with the Ontario Growth Secretariat, the Ministry of Transportation, as a one window to all the other ministries within the province to align both our research, our engagement, and our policy directions. So that work is underway, but it is it's the very first one. Actually.
Yes, no, I have 1A in front of me, and I noticed that it hadn't been spelled out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's important because.
Okay, so we can put some more language around the specifics of that. Happy to
Just
do
in
that.
conjunction
Yep.
with, I mean, I think it's easier said than done, but.
Yeah.
Leslie, can you say a word more about 18E, the Innovation Center of Excellence? Mr. Bardois has been a champion of this idea for some time, and I see it's now jumped up as a deliverable.
This was actually, it's been in all the previous documents. Maybe we bolded it this time, so you noticed it. The idea and the concept is that as all the breadth of work that we are undertaking, we are actually building and innovating on an ongoing basis. And this would be a place to sort of consolidate, bring daylight to the things that we are doing, and also to be a place to identify future areas that we should be pursuing, whether it's in pilots, programs, research, and so forth. So that is the goal. We have 2 years to get to a place where we can start at the beginning of that, but we have lots of content within which to begin to establish the center.
Can we invite our sister agencies in the GTHA somehow to be a part of that?
Yes.
Like if the idea is the GTHA be the center of innovation excellence,
Yes.
there's a lot of neat stuff going on in our sister agencies as well.
Yes.
Might be stronger if it's a collaboration.
Happy to do that, yep.
Anybody else have questions or comments on the plan? Doug, are you prepared to move the motion seeking approval?
Yes.
And Ann is seconding. Does anybody have any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? I see none. That's approved. That brings us to the 2014-15 business plan. Robert, you take the lead. This plan was reviewed at the audit committee yesterday. We had a good discussion of it. And so I don't want you to think this is the only level of review of this. It's a two-level review. Robert, why don't you give us the highlights? We've only allocated 10 minutes for this item because of the review yesterday as well. Over to you.
Okay, and again, I think my highlights are first of all to introduce Steve Naylor and Jennifer Gray, who are the ones that were leading this exercise and did a great job. Both Leslie and I would like to thank the whole corporation for all the efforts that they spent on working on both the 5-year strategic plan and this business plan for 14-15. So again, I think my key message is maybe a marketing message, is who is this document aimed at? And there's 3 audiences that we hope will read this document. The first one is our staff, and the most important one in my mind is our staff. This gives our staff an opportunity to see how they fit within the corporation and how they make a contribution to the delivery of the vision and the mandate of this corporation. And I think that's, it's 55 pages long. I'm making a strong pitch for why they should read 55 pages, but again, I think they're the first audience. The second audience is their shareholder. And this document, as Leslie pointed out in her comments, is part of an accountability and stewardship responsibility back to our shareholder to tell our shareholder for this year what we plan to accomplish with the funds that are entrusted to us. The third audience is obviously the public, and again, I find the document an easy read personally. I think it gives a lot of information about the corporation in one place. And it's done in a way that it pulls together how we try to do our business as well as what we're trying to accomplish in our business. So with that introduction, Chair, we're open for questions.
I thought it was a really good read.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It pulls together a lot of strands, and it fits nicely with Leslie's document sitting up above it. So they work nicely as a pair. Richard?
So again, on back on the goods movement piece in terms of this, if it's gonna parallel Leslie's, and if she's identifying some specific work that we're doing in the goods movement sector, I would hope this would reflect that as well.
Yeah, again, I think the reflection should be in what are our specific deliverables in that area, Richard, for this specific year.
Yeah, appreciate it, thanks.
So you'll add something on that?
Yes.
And the motion will give you authority to make that amendment.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the plan? Say at the audit committee, there was full support. Doug?
Just, people around the board have heard me say this a bunch of times, so I'll say it again. I guess what I think might be missing here, and I appreciate the politics of it all, but is an opportunity to lever our assets in a different way. And there's lots of different ways that can be done, but I don't see anything in here that says in this 5-year period, we should consider the appropriate use of our assets, and whether that's monetizing certain ones or financing certain ones in different ways. I just think that that's missing.
Again, we can't get everything in 55 pages, and we don't want 100 pages. I will say that there is a lot of work being done in the last year and will continue going forward. We've established a land asset maximization committee within the organization. It has representation from planning, operations, finance, etc. The interest of developers to be close to mass transit is over the last 4 years is just changed exponentially, and I think we have 23 interested sites now that we're tracking where either developers have come forward to show interest in working with us, or we know that there's opportunities coming in the future. So again, I think it's something we need to bring back to the board, Doug, to have a discussion about how we approach that part of our business going forward. But again, rest assured, we are working on it, and yes, our assets are very valuable to the GTHA and impact our ability to increase the economic potential of the GTHA.
Thank you.
So with an ambitious plan like this, lots of moving parts, and I agree this lays them out nice and sort of pulls them together. But when you think about the key risks on achieving this plan over the next couple of years, from your perspective, are there some that really stand out for you?
Thank you.
I think the fact that we're growing so quickly as an organization and we have such an extensive mandate, that requires the cooperation of everyone, and it requires us to continuously look at upgrading our resources to be able to meet the mandate that's ever expanding for this corporation. So, I mean, I think, you know, all of the work that we have to accomplish requires tremendous teamwork and tremendous abilities, both within the corporation and with our stakeholders and with our shareholder to some extent in terms of helping us move the agenda forward. So I think if there's a risk that keeps me up at night, it's the fact that we have to continuously look at how are we going to be able to accomplish this mandate, because it is such a fantastically big mandate and such an important mandate.
Anybody else? You want to move this, Doug?
Yep.
Please. Ian, second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? I see none. That's approved. Good job, Robert.
Good. The people that deserve the credit are not me, it's the team.
Good job recruiting your team. Very good. That brings us to the quarterly reports. These reports are intended to give members of the board, and through the board, members of the public, a sense of the activity quarter to quarter going on under the leadership of each of the leaders within Metrolinx. And it's intended as informational, but also if there are questions, we welcome any questions you might have. But the idea is that you see the movie as it's going on, and so when an issue comes along, it's not a surprise. It fits into the movie you've been watching in each of the divisions. The first one is the Union Pearson Express, known as Up Express. Kathy Haley is here. Your report's here. The report, as I read it, says We're on time, we're on budget. You're hit the streets, hit the rails sometime in the spring, and the pricing will come forward at our December board meeting, benefiting from the advice we've received from many on the topic. Are there any questions to Kathy? I see none. That brings us to Presto. Robert Hollis. Are there any questions to Robert as he continues to roll this out with the TTC pressing ahead? Questions to Robert? There are none. That brings us to Go Transit. Greg, we've heard a good deal from you, but as I said earlier, it's up to you to keep this railway working while you talk about expanding its capacity. Are there any questions to Greg on any aspect of Go? I see none. Policy, planning, and innovation. We've heard from Leslie already with the overview. I know you've got about 16 major projects underway. Maybe you could just give us a flavor for how you're feeling about the review of the big move. Just give us a sense of it.
Well, we're getting, first of all, physically organized to begin to tackle it. We're creating a dedicated team internally that's composed of from across the organization. We're beginning to lay out the research program. There's quite a breadth of research that we want to accompany the ledge review. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the ongoing discussions with the province to ensure that the review not only of the growth plan, but the Greenbelt plan is also under review as well. So we want to coordinate all those pieces. It's, as the RER has been introduced since 2008, so many more things are now what I would call landed that were not there before. So there's a lot more givens that we're working with. So I have a high degree of confidence about where we're moving forward with the ledge review. Is that sort of what you were asking?
Any questions to us? Okay, the next one is strategic communications. Any questions to Judy? None there. Jack Collins, rapid transit implementation. Jack, where are you? You're back there. You've had a number of directors go through the tunnel on Eglinton. Give us an oral report on the tunnel. I know it's in your report, but people come back so excited from having done it. I'd like the entire public to be able to take the tunnel tour.
It's bone rattling getting in there, but we are, two twin tunnels are moving roughly under Dufferin Street right now. So we have about 2.5 kilometers of tunnel, twin tunneling done. Looking to get to Allen Road with the first tunnel. They're kind of staggered, they follow each other. By December-ish of this year, and then there will be, the contractors actually come up with an innovative way of picking up most of the tunnel boring machine in one fell swoop and putting it on a big rubber-tired trailer and moving it across the TTC subway box, which is underneath it, and dropping it into the launch shaft right now. So we're definitely at a stage where rip the Band-Aid off. There's a lot of construction on Eglinton Ave right now. We work very closely with the city traffic department in terms of reroutes and detours. We're keeping two lanes open in all directions, one lane in each direction at all times. That's challenging with such a large contract, but it's moving along. So, and I think the directors were quite impressed with the symmetry of being inside a tunnel and what it looks like, but also the complexity of building it and the size and the magnitude of tunnel boring machines. It is,
and the precision.
And the precision is.
The tolerance is fractions, just
right.
Tiny.
Yes, I was on the tour last week, Mr. Chair, and it is truly one of the most interesting things I've seen in a long time when you see the scale and what we're achieving there, and the tunnel, and the precision, and the sophisticated engineering using tunnel boring machines from Lubbock, which is a Canadian firm out by the airport, is the leader in that type of technology. It is really, truly something. Now, for board members, if you haven't been there, Ian was with me, and Marianne McKenna. For board members who haven't gone, you should definitely go, because there'll be one thing you would like to see before you die.
Yeah. So, well, everybody put that on their bucket list.
Some might as soon.
But you also want to see it while it's under construction, right?
It's too late. It's too late to see it once the trains once our trains are running underneath. But
And Bruce, you've done a media tour as well?
Yeah, so we had all the leading commentators in the media, I think, went on a tour, and a lot of excitement came out of that. Again, I think the similar impressions from what Stephen has just outlined in terms of the scale, the complexity, the sophistication, and the technology that's gone into the program, I think similar kinds of commentary. And I went on the tour with board members a few weeks ago, and yes, it's a very impressive civil engineering undertaking at this point that ultimately is a city-building transformational opportunity for the region and the city of Toronto.
Great.
Doug and then Ann?
Do we have any plans or programs that can kind of virtually take Torontonians into the tunnels, or talk about the concrete pour that was finished last week? That's, you know, one of those great North American records. You know, I think that we've just got such a great opportunity to inspire people that while they're putting up with traffic congestion and road closures and all that stuff, that we can inspire especially young people in this city to become engineers, to get enthusiastic about this enormous, once-in-a-lifetime sort of civil engineering project.
There's always more we can do in terms of trying to communicate and project the kind of activity that's going on along rail corridors and underneath roads, and I agree. And if people go to the crosstown.ca, there's some great imagery already on the site that explain what's happening and give very regular, up-to-date information on what's happening right now, actually, including a tracker of the tunneling machines. But we can always do more.
I should know this, Jack, but when do you expect the Eglinton corridor between the Dufferin and say Bathurst area, or going over to Spadina? When will that be done? I'm asked this, by the way, at every dinner party.
We're past Dufferin, so we're heading towards Allen Road right now. So we'll be going through underneath Oakwood in that area soon as we approached. The overall duration from Black Creek to Yonge Street, we'll pull the machines out just east of, just west of Yonge, is around late 2016. And the other tunnel boring machines are coming from the Don Valley, and that contract's been awarded by the board. They're building a launch shaft now, and they are supposed to be at Yonge around the same time. So somewhere around mid to the fall 2016.
2 years from now.
All tunneling shall be done unless you want to tunnel somewhere else. But anyways, we'll have 4 machines, and we'll be pulling them all out of the ground around the summer and fall of 2016.
People heard that I had joined this board, I was asked everywhere.
But and don't take from that Eglinton will be restored to normal at Christmas of 2016.
Oh, no, that was the question I was
Because
asking.
then we got to build the stations.
So the stations will come next. There's 15 underground stations between Laird and Mount Dennis.
When
2020.
2020, so there's just a few more years of this.
A few more years. Yeah.
So your grandchild can come to
You might have gray hair by then.
It is good for my grandchildren. Yeah, no, that's good.
Howard?
Knowing that time frame, you give a flavor of a lot of small businesses, of course, lie along that corridor. And what's the feedback from the small business community? Because obviously it's disruption of business in a big way.
So, and it's kind of a rolling wave right now because we'll move detours and closures from side to side, and then we'll be out of there for a while, and then they'll be back with the station construction. Right now, we've been promoting the businesses. We have a Shop Eglinton program going on, so our community outreach people are actively out there promoting the businesses. We've actually helped some of the businesses with promotional materials, showing them how to use the web to advertise their businesses. Some of them, their business is actually up because of construction trades. Others aren't. So it's a mixed bag, and it depends on the type of business. But we are sensitive to that and trying to make sure that those businesses remain open. And we're sensitive to the fact that they've got to survive through a long construction duration here.
Thank you, Jack. Great progress. The next one and last one is economic analysis and investment strategy. You've already heard budget outcomes and the like. I want to say this is also the group that's responsible for the business case analysis of RER. So when we were talking about it earlier, that comes from Robert Siddle and Mike Sutherland's unit to bear down on the planning. It's outside go, if you will. It's the analytical unit, reporting to Robert, that will deliver that. Any questions to Robert on his report? I think you had a pretty good budget. Right? That is, as in provincial. Nice work. Good job. Thank you. Yeah, really, really good job. Bruce, is there anything else you want to raise before we complete the public session of the meeting?
No, that's all for me, Chair.
Does any board member have anything they want to raise? We do it again on December the 11th is the date in my mind?
Yes.
Is that right?
That's right,
December
yeah.
the 11th, same place. We'll announce the time. Thank you all very, very much for coming. Bruce and I'll do a short session with the media outside now. Thank you very much.
Sorry?
How late do we go today?
I think we're scheduled to go to about 1:45.